Hey, what's up? I'm a diagnosed narcissist, and I'm here to talk once again about my personality disorder. But keep in mind that I'm not a licensed professional, so with that being said, um, it's another one of those identity disturbances again. I mean, it never really stops. I'm not exactly sure how many times I can continue to keep saying it in my videos. Identity crisis, identity disturbance, I don't know who I am. What is it exactly that I'm made of? Well, yeah, I was thinking about my identity again, and I'm well aware as to why I'm so self absorbed, at least to the degree that I know that the reason why I'm so focused and fixated on myself is because I have no idea who I am whatsoever. And I was thinking a lot about existential crisis, having an existential crisis, and I'm starting to wonder if that basically makes up like a big chunk of my personality, if that, can even be a thing. Because I think I've noticed from like most people is that when they have an existential crisis, these things are just on a like periodical basis, something that they go through here and there, maybe when something doesn't work out. But I think I've noticed that my life has always been made of an existential crisis every single day. The more I try to reflect and see inside myself, I never find any discovery. And all I have are questions, which is why philosophy, I think, has been something that has naturally always made up the core identity of my existence, if there could be. I'm not, trying to come off like I'm some kind of like expert or whatever. But I do think it's interesting that, um, speaking of having an existential crisis, which a lot of people might associate with like nihilism, I've understood this even before I understood that word. Well, I don't want to say I did not understand the word, but like I guess like the like awareness of it, because this is a philosophy that irritates majority of people on a daily basis, but it's something that I've always had a lot of dedication to, if that can even make sense. I mean, it's a paradox, right? A dedication to nothing. But I guess that's why my disorder is also a paradox, because I'm dedicated to me, yet there is no me. So, whenever it comes to integration, this is the part of psychology that, I guess really struggle with. I have friends online that are big on psychology, and I talk about those ideas with them a lot, but I've been noted as the more like philosophical guy, I guess. And now that I think about it, I suppose that makes sense. I mean, I don't want to shit on philosophy. I don't even want to shit on psychology either. There's you know, something you can take out of both, I guess, if we're being like generous to like two fields and whatnot. But I mean, it's been said that philosophy is mental masturbation by a certain friend of mine online. He's probably watching right now, so hey, what's up? But yeah, and I guess I get it. I mean, I don't want to go around claiming that majority of people that are like into philosophy are people with like cluster B personality disorders. I'm sure that's not the case, but I mean, what makes psychology so abstract to me, despite having a lot of my content centered around my mental health issues. So of course I can't say that I negate psychology completely, but it's all about like the notion of like self and identity and integration. Like, if you watch my video in particular, and it's one of the best videos I think I've ever made. I'm disappointed that it doesn't have like as much views compared to like other videos, but go check it out if you haven't. It's called Narcissist Talks About Carl Jung's Shadow. Yeah, so something along those lines. Just search up those keywords and I'm sure you'll find it. But um yeah. So speaking of the shadow and integration and parts that are like hidden, because I guess psychology is really big on that. trying to understand, like behavior, or I guess like a will, so to speak. But I never really had that because I don't like that spirit, quote unquote. Or I guess I can't really say I don't like it. I just simply do not, understand it. So I've always been on par with philosophy because it attempts to, rationalize and explain. And hell, I'm an INTP, so with introverted thinking, which is kind of funny because that's a psychological concept. I guess it was created by Jung. Carl Jung was a, psychologist and whatnot. So I do like psychology because I guess like kind of like with the certain friend that I was talking about before, he did explain to me how like the cognitive functions can be seen in a very like TI organized sort of like process, but I guess when it hits the part when it comes to I guess like self development or understanding and integrating like parts, like I don't know what that means because I've, at least to myself, I've already established like the nothingness, like within me. When I think of nothingness, it can only get darker and darker and darker, and that's the only thing that there is to understand about it. But psychology talks in relation to self, and let's just say psychoanalysis and all these sort of things. Yes, integration and putting things as a whole. When all I see are costumes and like like things to put on, like there's nothing to mush together because my identity and myself might as well only exist with like the flick of a switch because nothing truly ever retains. I mean, explanations are explanations, but you don't feel anything personal about it. But I've always thought it was the more like realistic approach to life. So I guess yes, in my defense of philosophy over psychology, I do think philosophy is more realistic to a certain extent just because it's detached, and psychology is attempting to make ourselves be more of a big deal than who we actually are. And maybe this is just my bias, but I guess like understanding as like a narcissist, that's why I think it's compensation. And yes, it might just be my own projection, but I see people and everyone's part of like the game, so to speak, but I mean in a really sort of like detached way. Life isn't real, and we only exist in the eyes of death, and this is like a shallow sort of like illusion. And I think that's what like escapes me from most people, because I mean, the friend that I'm talking about, for example, is an ENTP, so I'm not gonna act like he's trapped in like linear thought. Hell, he'll come after me for having like linear thought just because I'm an INTP and I work with like TI more. But I do have this sort of idea, so it's not necessarily in relation to like, let's say like the MBTI type or like whatever. I mean, I feel like I should just point this out because he most likely is watching my video, and if you're watching, I guess, okay, this is what I mean though. So I'm not necessarily addressing you, but I mean this video is for whoever's watching it. But I'm just gonna say the only reason I think people have meaning in their lives is because they can live in a linear fashion. I feel like the only difference between me and most people is that they want to exist conceptually in a non-linear manner, but they truly treat life as if it is going in a linear sort of like like manner, because they don't think about death every day in like the same way I do, so they don't just see how shallow and artificial everything is. And I think that's where people derive meaning from, honestly, because they see another day as like an opportunity to like participate and like be part of like the game. But I'm kind of just like, okay, so what? Because I think when we realize that we are truly capable of being like conceptual and understanding, quote unquote, then I think like it just diminishes this like idea of a self. So I guess Buddhists do have a point when they're trying to like destroy everything. I do have a video on like Buddhism if you want to check that out. I think it's just called My Thoughts on Buddhism. So yeah, you'll find it if you just search my name, search those keywords, Buddhism, my thoughts, yeah, whatever, all that kind of stuff. But I, yeah, like I see it for like what it is, and I see that life is this like linear thing. So we're just making up abstract concepts like in our minds. So that's why even when I look at like philosophy, which is kind of funny because I know that like when people hear nihilism, they already think it's like empty statements. Like, I mean, I've told this certain friend group of mine online that, like, that's why I think, yeah, nihilism is essentially the ultimate philosophy, because we're just plummeting into nothing, and yet we're trying to compensate with like ideas of like ourselves and like who we are. So, you know, it's a stupid charade. So I guess like I keep like calling back to like the videos that I've made before. Um, yeah, I think I do have a video called "Life is a Stupid Charade," or "Being Drained is a Part of Life," and yeah, when you it's funny because when people talk carpe diem or seizing opportunities and like stuff like that, like they talk like everything's endless, but I feel like no, grabbing life every single day is just closer and closer to like staring the grim reaper like in the face. So I don't understand how I'm supposed to live every single day feeling like I have like somebody there to just like, associate, because I'm like disintegrating. Everything that I'm putting up is just like a lie, or like, it's like a facade, a persona, or like whatever. And that's like the same cycle that like, everybody's doing. So then even when I think of how, for lack of a better way of saying it, like deep and abstract that, psychology tries to be in relation to the self, I'm just like, no, there are no layers, because like from, I don't know, a Buddhist or more like philosophical perspective, like there is no you apart from the things that like you can explain and I guess like defend and justify. But the only thing I've noticed is that like the more logical and objective you are, the more detached from like true experience anything actually is. So that's kind of my qualms, I guess, with like psychology. I mean, you let me know what one has over the other, or maybe one just makes sense compared to the other entirely. Yeah, comment.